Welcome to the Seize the Day weekly podcast, your connection to all things cruising, powered by Travel with Brigetta.
Julie Williams here with Travel with Brigetta cruise expert Karla Meza. And today we're going to talk about how do I get there from here? Things to consider, options to consider with transportation to and even from your cruise ship. Karla, I know you're the expert on not just cruising, but also other kinds of travel. So let's talk about first flying to your cruise destination. A lot of people do that. So let's talk about when you fly to your cruise destination. Because when I went on my honeymoon, my first cruise ever, we flew from San Antonio to Miami and immediately went over and got on the cruise ship. And I didn't know any better then. I don't know that I would risk doing that today. What are your thoughts?
That's a very good point. Yes, I would always advise that you do not risk flying in on the same day as you embark on your cruise. It's very risky for multiple reasons. One, let me ask you, was that a connecting flight or was that a direct flight?
Good point. Mine, I don't remember. It was decades ago, but I see what you're talking about, which I've never been on a cruise, so I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, especially when you're flying out of an airport that isn't necessarily a very big international airport, more than likely you're going to have layovers. And when you add that to the combination of, I need to get from point A to B to C in order to get to point D on time, it's way too many moving factors that could potentially make you late and make you miss your cruise. Yeah. So a very a rule of thumb that we try to always advise by, there may be some special circumstances, but you really, if you have to fly, you really want to have your entire flight itinerary the whole day before, entire day before. And that does mean you have to think about some possible extra costs, like a hotel room, at least for the night, probably, dinner and breakfast the next day. But you'll feel a lot more at ease than running from the airport to get into a car that will hopefully make it to port.
And if you're thinking of trusting the airlines, I'm not saying it's the airline's fault, but think about, you could be going from, I don't know, Atlanta to San Diego, but maybe there's bad weather in Denver, and there's flights get shut there. So then the flight coming to get you gets canceled. And, things can get pretty crazy if there's bad weather, even if it's not anywhere near where you are or where you're going. So that can give delays or cancellations.
Yes, you can't limit yourself to thinking about your departure area and then your arrival area. You have to think about, well, I'm flying across the country. It's a whole route that, the plane is going to take and that I need to make sure isn't being affected.
Let's say you book through the cruise line as opposed to booking yourself with your flight or booking your through your travel agent. It's my understanding that they'll typically, their first option is to book you that first day, and then they provide transportation from the airport. If you were to book in a day before, they might not do that. And I heard a story once about a family that was flying, and they left it to the cruise line. And because they were in separate cabins, the family was actually split into separate flights because the cruise line just kind of did it with what they had available.
Yes. So I do not recommend going through the cruise line. I do not recommend packaging, bundling your flights with the cruise line, because that is not their area of expertise. They're not focused on getting you the right flight, keeping your family together. It's marketed as a convenience, but it's really not at all. general rule of thumb is that it'll be the same day. And again, that's just not a good decision to make when you've invested thousands of dollars on a vacation that you could possibly miss. Because the reality of it is they have no control over the flights either. And they're not going to be able to help you if something goes wrong.
Well, there's an argument. People say that the ship will wait for you if you book the flight through them, but I don't see ships waiting. What's the truth about that?
In my experience, that's not the case at all. And that's if you're lucky to get there the same day, but more than likely, when there's an issue like that with the airline, you're not even making it. And the cruise line is not going to stall for 10 people when they have a ship of thousands of people that are ready to go. They might compensate you. There may be some terms and conditions there where they will, take care of you because it is on them. But there's no cruise ship that waits for anyone.
I've also heard that they could fly you to the first port of call. Then you miss like a day or two of your vacation. But do they do that? Is that something that you commonly hear about or see?
Not commonly, again, just because it's not common for people to bundle their flights with their cruise. But I have heard that as well. I'm not sure which cruise line actually does that. But I have heard that that's a way to make amends. But yes, like you said, I mean, that could even mean that you're not on there until day 3 for some itineraries.
There's one other nightmare story I heard about. I don't think it's the case now. I think they resolved it. I won't mention the port or the cruise line, but one cruise line had, for picking you up at the airport, they would give you taxi vouchers. But what happened is, they had an agreement with the taxi company, so they would pay less. And so the drivers didn't want to take you because they weren't getting paid enough, even though you had a taxi voucher. So they've cleared that up. I don't know how, but you just can't even conceive of what could possibly go wrong. Okay, the benefits of going in early. Let's talk a little bit about that. So particularly if you booked it yourself or through a travel agent, because it's not really prudent to book it through the cruise line. There's no real upside and there are a lot of downsides. But if you booked the flight by yourself or you booked on the cruise line, in addition to, say, having a flexible schedule and the family flying on the same flight, what would you say the benefits would be?
I would say a big benefit of it is having, a whole evening to where you kind of just get to settle down, just, let the anxiety be released of, packing, getting ready, getting out of the house, making your flight, and kind of, jump-starting your relaxation time, jump-starting your vacation of being in a new space, already being in your hotel room, maybe having dinner in a new place. If you flew to your port, it's not where somewhere you usually spend time. Another real benefit that I find, because I have my master packing list, but things happen, is if you're already going through your stuff and say you have to brush your teeth at the end of the night, take a shower, and you realize you forgot something, you're still in a space and in an area, and you still have time to go get those things. Or you might walk around and see something that, most of the ports are very well known for being cruise ship ports. So there might be little tourist shops or little convenience stores that specifically cater to travelers and tourists. And you might pick something out that you're like, oh, I didn't even think of that, but I'd love to have it. A fan, portable fan, or an extra battery pack, or a reusable water bottle, any little knickknacks. It's just nice to have that extra buffer of, okay, I have started my vacation, but if I need anything else before I just go into the ocean, I still have that convenience.
Yeah, there's time for emergencies, and you're much more likely to not miss your ship. The other thought I had, and it depends on where you're going, of course, but I was going to go from Texas, from San Antonio area, to the Mediterranean for a cruise. And I was going to fly
Oh,
into Rome and then take transportation to, how do you say it? Veta or Czechoslovakia or something. I
I
never
can't
could,
tell you.
even with it in front of me, I never could say the name of the port. But it was going to be a couple of hours. And sometimes with the traffic, it could be a lot more than a couple of hours to get to the ship. But I was going to go in a few days early to, number one, take care of my jet lag. And then
Mhm.
secondly, just see a little bit of Rome, because they say they start in Rome, but they're not really. You're just going to fly into Rome, and they fly out of that cute little town that we can't pronounce. And so there might be a destination that you'd like to see, maybe even do an excursion, but even just to go and walk around a new place that you haven't been to. Okay. I think is another benefit of going early.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost like having your own little mini getaway before the big vacation starts.
Yeah, yeah. But you will have to pay for accommodations, and you will have to pay, of course,
Right.
you're going to pay for your airfare no matter what, whether you're paying the cruise line or paying the airline. And you will have to arrange your own transportation. But
Unless you're
I
working
would
with a
say,
travel agent.
yeah, I would say that's the best bet. You know, some people like to drive to the cruise line, and there's some benefits to that. But I know someone who drove from Canada to Miami for a cruise. I don't think I would quite do that. So
Yeah,
what do you
that
feel
sounds like a whole road trip vacation beforehand. That sounds exhausting, like the vacation you need a vacation from.
exactly? I'm with you. I'm with you because you're sitting so long in that car. Uh, excuse me. What would you say would be some of the benefits of driving to the port? And can you drive the same day?
I would say if you're at least within the same state, and you're with like a group that can at least split up the drive. I've done Dallas to Galveston same day, and that was, I think it was only supposed to be 5 to 6 hours, but it turned into 7 with traffic. And I can say that I slept most of the time because the group I was with, we had a specific person that has a little bit of anxiety with being in the car, and they feel their best when they're driving. So they would rather be in control, and they'd rather be driving the entire time. And that's, what keeps them all right. And I said, okay, well, that's fine with me. But by the time we left at like somewhere between 5 and 7 in the morning, by the time we're in Galveston, meeting up with the rest of our group and then doing everything to onboard. And then, it's 3, 4 p.m. We're taking off. It's the big send off. I'm like, I've had all day. I'm exhausted. Even if I did sleep in the car, well, the comfortable sleep. I still, packed yesterday and got up at dawn, and there may have been some, pre, drinking already when we just got on the boat because we're on vacation. You want to cheers on the send off. And by 6 p.m. for dinner, I'm like, I don't know if I want to get ready for fancy dinner. Maybe we just go do pizza and relax tonight. When that could have been my whole day before. That could have been my day 0, and day 1 on the cruise ship, I could have been totally refreshed, ready to go and start my vacation.
Right. And while you're driving there, that's kind of exhausting too. But then you get on the ship, and then you have to wait 2 hours before you can get to your cabin. So you're still kind of in limbo.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're,
if you
you're going from line to line, different checkpoints, you go, you might not have access to your things right away if you want to refresh because you've been in the same clothes for 10 plus hours already. Traveling can get a little exhausting, sticky, sweaty, especially in Galveston.
Yeah, I like to drive myself, especially a lot of times I go out of Galveston so that I can drive because I'm in the San Antonio area. It's about 4.5, 5 hours. Again, lots of traffic in Houston, so it just depends. But I'd like to go the day before. And if anybody's flying in from the group, sometimes I can pick them up at Hobby Airport on the way down to Galveston. But one of the things I like about driving to the cruise ship is I really like coconut milk in my coffee. And that's one thing that I don't think a cruise line has. And if they did, it would probably be like what Starbucks has, where it's sweetened, right? And I get these cartons of coconut milk, and I can get a suitcase or a box. And I have, let's just say, in fact, a year ago, I did it. I took about a dozen little cartons of coconut milk with me just to have in the cabin. Imagine how heavy that would be in a suitcase, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So now I do need to say, I think the rules have been changing. So what do you know about that, Karla, about whether they'll let you bring in, because I know most of them won't let you bring in bottled water anymore. What can you not bring on the ship?
So that's going to be very specific per cruise line. I haven't seen too many changes. It used to be a very typical, you can bring up to, I think it's like a 12 pack of waters. It's not like a full case of waters. Mm-hmm. And then you can bring like one 24, case of sodas and or beer, I believe. And then you can have up to one bottle of wine. I know that for sure. And that's the only reason I'm curious if they turned the cans of sodas, if they can be beer or not. But probably not. That actually doesn't.
Yeah, I don't think that they allow beer, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, I believe wine is the only acceptable alcohol that they allow. Right. It's I do believe it's I think there's a misconception. Some people think it's one bottle per like adult, 21-year-old, but I think it's only one bottle per cabin.
Oh, I thought usually it was one per adult. I thought it was also one per adult.
Yeah, I think I think you can have one case of something per adult, but when it comes to the alcohol, yeah, I don't think they're allowing 4 bottles per cabin when you can possibly have 4 adults in there. I'll have to double check on that.
I have expected that they might take my coconut milk, and that I might have wasted some money for coconut milk, but it was worth it to try. And I didn't hear anything about it. It ended up in my cabin. I didn't have any trouble. So if you have something heavy like that or larger like that, you might consider driving over flying, because it can get really expensive to fly. Anything else you can think of, Karla, about transportation to or even from the cruise ship?
I would also say one thing, especially if you are, for whatever reasons you need to get to the port the day before and you do have a hotel room, and then the next morning, there are a lot of hotels that are partnered with the cruise lines, and they'll have shuttle systems that will take you to the port, or, the cruise line will even sometimes let you know, like, oh, if you stay at this hotel, we already have this shuttle set up. What you hear about a lot of the times, though, is how long it takes. How long it takes to get these 50 plus people situated, bags situated in the shuttle, and then shuttle actually taking you from point A to point B. So my advice is, if you are a family, if you are a group of at least, 4 and under, or you can split up into groups of 4 and under, your best bet is just going to be to call an Uber or a Lyft.
What we did, because we drove into Galveston, what we did is I dropped off. This was a travel with Brigetta trip. I had 4 ladies in. There were 4 of us in my SUV, and I dropped them off. I mean, we drove in that day, which is not something I would normally do, but I dropped them off with all the bags at the cruise line. Then I went to a parking company and parked there. And all they had to take in their shuttle was me, with no bags and no other people. And that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, that's great. See, I definitely have, parked in the actual port parking. And then when you're disembarking, dealing with exactly like the shuttle to get you to and from, because it's a really, really big parking lot.
Thanks for joining us on the Seize the Day Cruise podcast, powered by Travel with Brigetta. I'm Julie Williams, along with cruise and travel expert Karla Meza. On behalf of all of us here at the Seize the Day podcast and Travel with Brigetta, we're glad you stopped by. Till next time, seize the day.
You've been listening to the Seize the Day podcast, powered by Travel with Brigetta. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe. And as always, feel free to ask us anything in the comments section. We love to hear from you. Or email us at bookings@travelwithbrigetta.com. Till next time, seize the day.